Hey friends, let's fix some 5th edition stuff. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, so what we're going to tackle today is Capstone Abilities. If you don't know what that is, or you do and you're curious what I mean, stay tuned. Alright guys, so Capstone Abilities. What is a Capstone Ability? This is basically your highest level ability. What we're going to be talking about today is class Capstone Abilities. So this is the final ability you get in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons when you hit level 20. Yes, I can already hear you guys talking about it. Why are you fixing capstones? No one ever gets to level 20. And you know what? You're right. But that being said, something needs to be said about some of them being awful. There are a lot of capstones that are fantastic. And they are what a class should truly get when they hit level 20. It's something great. It feels like you put the investment without multi-classing of 20 levels into this class, and you are rewarded as such. I also wanted to do it because in the process of doing this fixing series, where I go back and adjust classes or subclasses or things that I feel need improvement, some of the things that I suggest maybe sort of step on the toes a little bit of a capstone that exists, but I would say largely the ones that I'm bringing up, the capstones are garbage. So the example of that would be Sorcerer. My idea of giving the Sorcerer the ability to short rest or recharge sorcery points, similar to a wizard how they can get spell slots back with Arcane Recovery. And people say, well, you get sorcery points back when you finish a short rest at level 20. Again, my point, you're probably never going to get there, and it's bad. So we're going to talk about which ones are good, which ones are bad, and maybe, if we have time in this video, we'll discuss some ways we could fix it, or we could save that for another video, and I'd love to hear your guys' suggestions. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over here to D&D Beyond so we can take a look at the different classes. So we're not going to look at the Artificer because it's Unearthed Arcana, and the Blood Hunter is non-official, so we're not going to look at that. So let's go ahead and start with the Barbarian. Barbarian is an example of a capstone that is excellent. So if we scroll down here, you'll see Primal Champion, level 20 ability. You also get Unlimited Rage at this point, but Primal Champion is the ability we're going to look at. Your Strength and Constitution increase by 4. Your maximum for those scores is now 24. So normally a maximum limit without any funky stuff is 20 in a class or in an ability. You get a flat bump to your con and your strength. So even if they're not at 20, so that you get the bump up to 24, they still get increased by a substantial amount. This is an excellent capstone. Yes, you are level 20, but you're becoming that much stronger of a barbarian. Your unarmored defense is boosted by your increase in your constitution. Your overall damage is going to be increased, and your to hit is going to be increased by your strength, as is your hit points. So you're going to be able to be a better barbarian. And I think it's really good. If you manage to go 20 levels in barbarian, you're going to get a substantial power increase, and I think that that's worth it. So let us head back. Let's go check Bard. Bard is an example of one that is bad. Superior Inspiration. When you roll initiative and have no bardic inspirations left, you regain 1 use. This is awful. Like, why would you give someone... So this is another one of the examples of why almost no one will take 20 levels in Bard, because you don't get anything for your 20th level that's really worth it. If you look at this, the only thing, at 19 you're going to get an ability score improvement, so everybody's going to get that, so that may sway your decision. But at 20, the only thing you're going to get is 1 additional 7th level spell. But if you take another class that's a spellcasting class, you're still going to get that. So it might be worth to take that 1 level of Sorcerer so you can get some more cantrips, still get the same spell slots, and get access to some new spells like Shield or Mage Armor, or something like that. Just compared to what we already discussed, a Barbarian gets a +4 to 2 ability scores, increasing the maximum to 24. you get to use your Bardic Inspiration. You get 1 use at the start of combat if you have none. So if you roll into combat with full Bardic Inspiration or more than 1, or 1 or more, your capstone does nothing. It is completely useless to you because it's only when you roll initiative. So even if you start initiative with 1 and then you use it the next turn, you do not get another one. So yes, I understand, and this is going to kind of, I can already see the complaints. A lot of Bard abilities are fantastic, and you're right, they are. But that's not, we're not here to talk about whether the Bard is good or not. We're here to talk about capstone abilities, and this is awful. I mean, you think about a Battlemaster Fighter, which is a subclass. They get their superiority dice back on a short rest, just like a Bard does. Although a Bard has to get to level 5 to get theirs back, fighters get them back at level 3. And when a fighter starts combat without superiority die at level 15, they get 1 back. So they're getting essentially the same thing, if you will, because a superiority die kind of increases in scale the same way as a Bardic Inspiration does. And in a lot of senses lets you, I mean, only for yourself, increase that amount and increase the same things, attack, damage, etc. But you still have other cool capstone abilities as a fighter. So let's go back. Oh, jump back too far. Sorry, my mouse is dumb. So let's go look at Cleric, another example of a great subclass, or a great capstone ability, Divine Intervention. So Divine Intervention is the ability you get at level 10, which can be super powerful if you manage to make the very improbable roll of rolling a percentile, or a D100, and trying to roll your level or below. So at level 10, if you can roll a percentile and roll 10 or below, Divine Intervention will work. And then as you go up, if you're 15, it's rolling 15 or below, and so on. When you reach level 20, this just works without you needing to roll. What can you do with Divine Intervention? Honestly, just about anything. But let's read what it says. Employing your deity's aid requires you to use your action. Describe the assistance you seek and roll percentile dice. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level, the deity intervenes. The DM chooses the nature of the intervention. The effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell would be appropriate. If you succeed, you can't use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. So again, this at level 20 is a button that you can press to activate this. So potentially, at level 20, it says it can be the effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell. That's what's written. You can choose to ask for aid, and the DM can choose to grant you whatever they want. They could grant you something completely, roleplay in the world, or they could grant you something, tied to that spell. That being said, this can duplicate any cleric spell, so depending on what you choose and how you word it, this could essentially give you another 9th level spell if you word your thing in such a way, like I want to heal all my friends to maximum hit points, meaning you want to use, theoretically, to replicate the mass heal spell as an option, right? That's a thing you could do, essentially giving you another 9th level spell, and I guarantee that you could have it. This is also cool because this is an ability you've had for 10 levels at this point, and now you may have tried it a handful of times and it hasn't worked, but now you have the payoff of guaranteeing that it will work, but it's essentially giving you another spell slot, or, depending on how the DM looks at it, a means to alter and change things some other way. But basically a way to call upon a god and have their power work in the world, compared to 1 more Bardic Inspiration when you start combat. Okay, next up is my computer being dumb. The Druid, another example of a great capstone ability. You can use your wild shape an unlimited number of times. Previous to this, it was twice per short rest. You can now use it unlimited, which is in and of itself fantastic. Especially if you're something like, say, a Moon Druid, this is going to be even better. And additionally, you ignore the verbal and somatic components of your Druid spells, as well as any material components that lack costs and aren't consumed by the spell. You gain this benefit in your normal shape and your beast shape. So, what I feel a lot of people are immediately going to go to is how great this is, because you can now cast in wild shape, and that is a wonderful thing. So, especially again, if you're a Moon Druid, where you could be shifting in and out of forms as a bonus action, gaining that new hit point pool, especially turning into things like elementals or things with a large sponge of hit points, bonus action transform, and then cast a spell as an action from whatever form you were in. That's great. And that's, I mean, in and of itself, having wild shape an unlimited number of times means, again, Moon Druid specifically, but other Druids as well, depending on what you transform into, you have a whole nother health pool that you can reliably rely on every turn. And at this point, you can stay in your wild shape form, I think, for 10 hours. So if you needed to do something like that, if you wanted to hide or scurry away as a mouse or whatever the case may be, you have a lot of options to get extra health and survivability, flight, underwater swimming, whatever you need, and the ability to cast spells while in that form. But what it says is you ignore the verbal and somatic components of all your druid spells, even while in normal shape. That means you can't be counterspelled. And I can find the tweet somewhere back, but basically, if there is no indication that you are casting a spell, like you don't need to say a specific phrase for a verbal component, or do a specific hand gesture with a somatic component, or pull out a specific material component, there is no way for anyone to know that you're casting a spell. Typically, the only other way to do this is to be a sorcerer and use the subtle spell ability, but if you don't have that, this is a way you can cast literally almost any spell, again, barring material components that lack a cost and aren't consumed by the spell, but that means those other spells can't be counterspelled because the person attempting to counterspell won't know you're casting. Again, think about what we're comparing this to currently with the Bard. I'm just saying, like, that's a pretty good one. Fighter, another good one. It's less flashy than a lot of the other ones, but it's a 4th attack. So throughout most of the level, you're going to be the only class that has 3 attacks. All your martial classes are going to have 2 attacks. You can probably gain a 3rd attack if you have access to something like a haste spell. But as a fighter, you could also get access to that in, one form or another. But you'd have 3 attacks at level 11. At level 20, you now attack 4 times. So that is a 4... and then again, if you choose to action surge and attack again, that's 8 attacks in a round. You can action surge twice at level 20. And again, your action surge and all your other abilities are going to come back on, or most of all your other abilities, Indomitable not included, are going to come back on a short rest. But 4 attacks is huge. And depending on your subclass, that could be extra plans to use superiority dice or what have you. It's great. I am a big fan. I think it's another one of those great abilities. Let's check out the Monk, another example of a bad one. When you roll initiative and have no key points remaining, you regain 4 key points. At least it's not like the Bard, who only gets 1 back. Bardic Inspiration. Granted, your Bardic Inspiration is a much lower number. You will likely only have ever 5. Perfect Self gives you 4 key points, which is normally you'd have 20 key points. So you're getting a 5th of them back. Again, maybe the reason why is because monks can already do so many things with all the different abilities that they have, but this is not a +4 to 2 stats. This is not uncounterspellable spells, unlimited wild shape, or free help from a god. This is 4 key points when you roll initiative. And again, same thing with the Bard. If you have 5 key points, actually, when you have no key points, so even if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or more key points, when you start initiative, this does nothing. The only reason I can think they might have tried to do something like this is that hopefully this is going to entice you to spend your key points more often, because if you have none when you start combat, you could get 4 back. You get them back on a short rest, though, so as long as you're in a campaign where your DM allows you to take short rests, that should help. But yeah, 4 key points back, not that great. You're going to notice that that's kind of the theme here. The ones that have that are bad, and the ones that don't are typically good. So Paladin is unique in that it's the only class that gets a Sacred Oath feature at level 20. So, like, normally, your main class gives you a benefit at 20, and for a Paladin, one of their subclass options gives them a benefit at 20. So if we scroll down, we'll look at a couple of them. And they're usually like a transformation ability. You do something as an action or a bonus action, and you transform into some new form, and it gives you a ton of boosts. It usually lasts for about a minute. So Conquest gives you Invincible Conqueror. As an action for a minute, you have resistance to all damage. You take the attack action on your turn, you can make an additional attack, and you crit on a 19 or 20 once per long rest. Devotion Paladin. For 1 minute, bright light shines from you in 30 feet and dim light beyond that. Any enemy that starts their turn in the bright light takes 10 radiant damage. In addition, for the duration, you have advantage on saving throws against spells cast by fiends or undead. So again, this one is going to shine light, and it's going to damage your enemies. That is 100 damage, potentially, if you manage to lock them. Maybe I'm doing the math wrong. 10, in 1 minute, it's 10 rounds. Yeah, 100 damage if you manage to lock them into the radius for the entirety of your spell here. Heroism is Unearthed Arcana. Redemption. This is one where you don't have an action. This just is always on. Resistance to all damage dealt by other creatures. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack, it takes radiant damage equal to half the damage you take from the attack. If you attack a creature, cast a spell on it, or deal damage to it by any means, but this feature, neither benefit work against the creature until you finish a long rest. So those are just always on abilities. Oath of the Ancients, as an action for 1 minute, you regain 10 hit points at the start of every turn. When you cast a Paladin spell with a casting time of 1 action, it becomes a bonus action, and enemy creatures within 10 feet of you have disadvantage on saving throws against your Paladin spells and Channel Divinity. Oath of the Crown. This one is an action, and this one lasts for an hour. Resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing for non-magic weapons. Allies have advantage on death saves within 30 feet, and you have advantage on wisdom saving throws, as do your allies within 30 feet. So that one gives bonuses to your allies. And I think lastly here we have Vengeance, which is for 1 hour. You gain the following. You sprout wings and can fly with a fly speed of 60 feet. You emanate an aura of menace for 30-foot radius. The first time any creature enters the aura, starts its turn there in battle, must succeed on a wisdom saving throw. Enemy creature, I should say. Wisdom saving throw be frightened for you for 1 minute or until it takes damage. Attack rolls against the frightened creature have advantage. So that's examples of, again, really good capstones. Then we're going to get to Ranger. Shocker, Rangers is bad. Go figure. What's also interesting, which is another problem that I have, is that Ranger and Paladin were basically designed, I'm going to say, to be somewhat similar, in that Rangers and Paladins are both half-casting martial classes. So you would think, and I feel like this would make a lot of sense if you look at it from a design standpoint, right? You have a lot of full casting classes, you have some martial-only classes. If these are your two half-casting classes, the only ones that exist in 5th edition at the moment, that each have they use a different ability score, they both get 2 attacks, they get, spells up to 5th level, and they get other cool things, you would think that they would have used the same design so that each Ranger subclass at level 20 would have got something unique similar to the way the Paladin was. That's not the case, though. Rangers just get Foe Slayer. Once on each of your turns, you can add your Wisdom modifier to the attack roll or damage roll of an attack you make against one of your favorite enemies. You can choose to use this feature before or after the roll, but before any of the effects of the roll are applied. So first of all, you're limited into the amount of favorite enemies that you have. So we don't have the cool benefits of Unearthed Arcana, Revised Ranger. So favorite enemy, you get 1 at 1st, 1 at 6th, and 1 at 14th. Yeah, so that's it. You get 3 total favorite enemies. And out of those favorite enemies, if you happen to be fighting one of them, you can add your Wisdom modifier only once. You get 2 attacks, mind you. but you can only add your wisdom modifier to the attack roll or damage roll of one attack when you make it against one of your favorite enemies. So you first got to be in that situation, then you can only do it for one. What's the downside of applying it to both? I mean, this is your 20th level ability. This should be useful and to its full extent. And then you can choose to use this feature before or after the roll, but before any of the effects of the roll are applied. So that's at least a benefit. You don't have to theoretically waste it. Like if you're like, I'm going to add it to damage and you roll a natural 1, not to add it to your damage. But yeah, it's just not good. I mean, like if you look at, again, comparing it to Paladin, that's how I judge a Ranger most basically. They're the only two half-casting classes. They're both martial in nature. They both can cast spells. If you look at one class, the Paladin, who has all these other really useful abilities they get at first level, that first or second level, that last them through the entirety of the class and only get better, and then have these other cool transformation style abilities at level 20. The Ranger gets possibly up to maximum, typically a 5 damage or +5 to hit once per turn on one attack. And there are other Rangers that sometimes get access to third attacks. You're never going to have that with the Foe Slayer ability. Now, Rogue is an example of one that's really good. Stroke of Luck. If your attack misses a target within range, you can just turn it into a hit. So, that's great. Ah, crap, I missed. No, I didn't. Or, if you fail an ability check, you can choose to treat the roll as a 20. So it's also when you fail an attack or fail an ability check. So the DM has to tell you that your roll failed, and then you can say, you know what? I didn't fail. I got a natural 20 instead. So your stealth check as a rogue of 20th level, this is going to be in like the 40s or the mid 30s at this point. So, I mean, that's huge. Because how many times, again, you're going to be at level 20, so things are going to be different. But skill checks can be make or break for combat or encounters or traps or whatever. And you could just be like, sorry I failed, guys. I'll just make it a 20. And you get that back on a short rest. That's huge. This is, again, way better than a couple of key points or maybe some damage. This is a guaranteed hit. Sorcerer, another example of a bad one. Sorcerer's Restoration. You regain 4 sorcery points whenever you finish a short rest. So the other classes that get these get back their things when they start combat with none. Yours is whenever you finish a short rest, you get 4 back. Again, you have 20. You have the exact same number of sorcery points that the monk has. The monk gets their their key points back on a short rest. You do not. The monk then, when they start combat, gets 4. You do not get them back on a short rest, so instead you get 4 when you finish a short rest. So if you roll into combat with 0 sorcery points, you're still in that combat with 0 sorcery points unless you're converting spell slots over. Again, don't think it's worth it. Warlock. Now, Warlock is a tricky one. I'm not really sure where I fall on the Warlock one. So you draw on your inner reserve of mystical power. You can spend 1 minute entreating your patron for aid to regain all of the spell slots from your pact magic feature. Once you regain spell slots with this feature, you must finish a long rest to do so again. So you're going to have a Mystic Arcanum, 1 6th, 1 7th, 1 8th, and 1 9th level spell. This does not recharge those. Those that you get from Mystic Arcanum come back on a long rest. You normally get your spell slots back as a Warlock on a short rest. And at 20th level, you will have 4 spell slots. So 4 Warlock slots, all being cast at 5th level. It's pretty good. But you have to take a whole minute to get them back. So, I don't know. And this is, I'm nitpicking here, but I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of the time, if you find yourself in a scenario where you can sit down and just have a minute in D&D to just focus on, regaining magic, I feel like more often than not, again, I'm sure you can cite me your own personal examples, but if you have time to sit down, whatever you're doing, and take a minute rest, you more often than not have enough time to sit down and take an hour rest. Again, maybe you find yourself on the other side of a locked door, people are knocking the door down, and your barbarian's holding the door shut, and you're like, just give me a minute, and then you spend the minute and get it. That's an example where, sure, this would be huge, because you'd be now fully stocked up. But I feel like a lot of the time when you're traveling over land, or you're, taking a pause, and depending on where you are in like a dungeon crawl or something like that, if you can find a minute, you can usually find an hour. Again, I could be wrong, and maybe people have some really good stories and examples of times they've been able to use this to great effect. But, you work so hard to get those 4 slots, and then you have to take a whole minute. I honestly don't feel like it would be bad if this was an action, and it's still long rest as an action. You can get, all your spell slots back. And lastly, we have Wizard, an example of a great one, which is signature spells. Gain 2 powerful spells, you can cast them with little effort. Choose 2 third-level wizard spells in your spellbook. They are your signature spells. You always have these prepared. They don't count against the number prepared you have. So you just took 2 of what you're considering to be your signature spells, and now those are removed. So you basically just learned, you got 2 more prepared spells per day. And you can cast each of them once at 3rd level without expending a spell slot. So you just got 2 3rd-level spells for free that you can cast without expending a spell slot. So this could be, I think, good examples are typically counterspell, spell magic. Let's say this says they have to be 3rd level, haste, fly. There are a lot of good options for 3rd-level spells, and you can cast each of them. So you choose the 2. Each one can be cast without expending a spell slot, and you get this ability back on a short or long rest. So take a short rest, you manage to get these 2 free 3rd-level spells back. You still have all your regular spells. During that short rest, you could still use Arcane Recovery if you wanted to get some other spell slots back. And, you just have them forever prepared. And if you want to cast a spell at a higher level, you have to expend a spell slot as normal. And this is coming off shortly before that. At 18th level, you got Spell Mastery, which is a 1st-level wizard spell and a 2nd-level wizard spell added to your spell book. There, you can cast those as if you, without expending a spell slot when you have them prepared. If you cast a spell higher, so you're getting these 2 free, always prepared 3rd-level spells that you can cast once each without expending a spell slot per short rest. And at 18th level, you get 1 1st and 1 2nd-level spell that you can cast at its lowest level forever without expending a spell slot. So that's my little talk about what the capstone abilities are, which ones are good, which ones are bad. Now, how could we go about fixing this? We're running a little bit long, but I'm going to take a crack at a couple of them. So for Ranger, I would make it always on. I would say you get your Wisdom modifier to any... If you want to stick with the favorite enemy theme, I'm fine with that. And what I would do, honestly, this is a larger part of a much longer video that's going to be how do we fix the Ranger in the first place. But I would make you get a plus bonus equal to your Wisdom modifier to the attack rolls against your favorite enemy when you get that favorite enemy. So at whatever it is, 1, 6, and 14, or whatever the case may be, you get your Wisdom modifier added as a bonus to the attack roll for any favorite enemy. And then at 20th level, you add the damage roll, to all attacks made against your favorite enemies. That's pretty basic, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm in love with that idea, but that's a thought process. So that would be one suggested fix. For the Warlock, like I said, I think I would just make it once a long rest. You can use an action to regain all of your spell slots from your Pact Magic feature. I get it, you can normally get them back on a short rest, so the expedited version was a minute. I would make it an action. I'd have to playtest that to see. Again, you're 20th level, but these spells can only be cast at 5th level anyway, so it's not like you're getting back all of your 1st through 5th, plus your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, or 8th, 9th, 8th, and 9th spell. No more 10th level spells. So the Sorcerer, getting 4 sorcery points back on a short rest. I still stand by the stuff that I had stated in my Fixing Sorcerer video. I would give them sorceress recovery, and similar to a wizard's arcane recovery, I would give them half their level rounded down in sorcery points back on a short rest once per long rest. And then at 20th level, I'm not sure. Maybe I just mimic the wizard thing. I know that doesn't really fit with the sorcerer. I have to put some more thought into it. I don't have a good answer for you right now. You could make it as simple as make it like the other ones that I don't like, where they get 4 sorcery points when they roll initiative with none. But I'm not sure I really like that either. I have to think about that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments how you would fix the sorcerer's capstone. Then the other ones we have here are Monk and Bard. So, I guess the reason they give Bard only 1 Bardic Inspiration when they start at combat without one, but because they only get so few. But I think it would be cool to give them something else. I mean, you could give them more magical secrets, but I think that might be too much. I'd like to give them another cool ability. So you have the counter charm ability that you get pretty early on that no one ever uses because they worded it in such a way that it's pointless. Like you only can use counter charm only works when before a charm effect is activated. So one of the cool things bards had in 3.5 was their bardic music feature, and you learned different songs. Like a couple of examples you kind of have here are like you have the Song of Restoration kind of a thing where you get an extra inspiration die on a short rest when you short rest heal, and then you have the counter charm. It would be cool if they added like another bard music feature. If you did something, maybe make Jack of all trades better. I would want to say like maybe you get proficiency in extra skills. Maybe Jack of all trades gets a bonus of +1. Something like that. I'd like to see something along those lines. A bonus to skills, because none of these really have a benefit to skills. We have bonuses to spellcasting. We have bonuses to ability scores. I guess the rogue has the ability to make a failed skill check turn into a natural 20. Maybe expertise in 2 more skills, possibly. I mean, that kind of steps on the toes of the rogue, but they only get 2 expertise. Maybe you get that. Maybe Jack of all trades gets a +1 bonus overall just for skill checks. Something along those lines I think would be a good for a bard, rather than just getting 1 bardic inspiration when you roll combat without it. And for the monk, 4 key points when you start a combat, it's okay. It's better than 1. And it's better than getting them on a short rest, but you get them all back on a short rest. I'd like to see some sort of cool, like, transcendent thing, like where you kind of already get that in that one ability. I think it's your level 18 ability, which is the empty body, which is beginning at 18th level. You can use your action to spend 4 key points to become invisible and stay invisible for that whole time without concentration. Get resistance to all damage but force. Or cast the astral projection spell. So as a monk, I mean, it could be something as simple as like your unarmored movement when you move across water or up walls. You don't have to keep moving, right? Like you could run on water and stop and just stay on top of the water, or run up a wall and stop on the wall, so you kind of have almost like a permanent spider climb or a permanent water walk. That's a really simplistic thing, and I don't think that really fits as a good capstone ability, but that's a thing you could do. One thing that they used to do back in 3.5 was that when you hit like 20th level with a monk, you transcended essentially like the material world, and you were no longer considered a humanoid, or whatever you were. You kind of became an outsider because you are like now. I don't really know. There's not really a good equivalent to outsider in 5th edition. But like you essentially transcended above and beyond your physical body, and you have like reached another plane of like enlightenment and existence. So maybe something along those lines. It would also be cool for the sorcerer, possibly. I know you already got something in 18 as part of your sorceress feature, but maybe something more along those lines, like it taps into something else that you get at level 8, at level 20. I I don't know. I don't like the Sorcerer's Restoration. I think you should give them the short rest recovery sorcery points. Again, like I said, I have to put some more thought into that. A wizard-like ability where you just get signature spells is cool. It seems kind of cheap to just copy and port that directly over. But I am curious what you guys think. Sorry this video was a little bit longer. There was a lot to talk about. It was actually a requested video by a fan to talk about capstones. So I wanted to talk about them, what's wrong, and then we did a little bit there about how to fix them. Let me know what you think. Am I way off base? I'm sure some of you tell me I'm being too negative. It's level 20. You never get to that point. Yes, I know. But that's not the point of this video. Also, if I seem a little animated or over the top on some of these things, that's called being hyperbolic. And that's a thing that we do here on YouTube to get you guys to come and watch the videos. I get so many comments that people just freak out about this stuff. And it's fine. I like hearing your feedback on everything you have to say, whether it's positive, negative, or like just reminding me that Unearthed Arcana is playtest or whatever. So let me know what you guys think. I'm curious. Do you have suggestions? Have you ever played at level 20? I've done one shot at level 20 in 5th edition. But I'm curious if anyone has experience with 20th level play. Did they find their capstones really came into play a lot or not at all? Have you thought of any ways that you would want to fix some of these classes that have what I consider to be poor capstone abilities? Let me know. And if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. I've got a lot of content that I'm working on. I just need time in the day to honestly sit down and do it. That's why these videos I'm recording at 4:30 in the morning, because that's why I'm drinking coffee, so I can stay awake through it. And if you want to see live play of stuff, be sure to come and check out the Twitch channel. We started doing world building streams on Monday, gameplay on Tuesday, and character building on Wednesday. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, hit the link down below and join the Twitch channel as well. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.